This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidu-Yuat. It's Tuesday, October 15th. This is Africa 54. Mozambicans go to the polls in a high-stakes election. We'll bring you the latest from Cabo Delgado. How to combat overfishing on Lake Malawi. And we'll look at what happens when former Boko Haram insurgents try to rejoin society. We begin tonight in northern Nigeria, where authorities say they have rescued 67 people from an alleged Islamic school. It's believed the group of men and boys were shackled and subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment. David Doyle has the story.
Nearly 70 men and boys have been rescued from a purported Islamic school in northern Nigeria, where they were shackled and subjected to what police are calling inhuman treatments. This is Lawal Ahmed, one of the former captives. He says that beatings and punishing abuse were commonplace and that he witnessed sexual assault and the death of other captives during his 2 years of imprisonment. Another captive, Ali Abdu, says he was tortured every day. The rescuees, aged between 7 and 40, were found in chains when police raided the centre on October the 13th. One man has been arrested for running what they called an illegal detention/remand home. The operation comes less than a month after 300 men and boys were freed from another supposed Islamic school in a neighbouring state. Islamic schools, known as al-Majiris, are common across the mostly Muslim north of Nigeria. A trader who lives nearby said families would send unruly men and boys to the facility, hoping it would straighten them out. President Muhammadu Buhari said in June that the government plans to ban such schools, but would not do so immediately.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Mozambicans have cast their ballots in what looks set to be one of the country's most high-stakes elections yet. The vote will also test a fragile peace deal between the ruling Frelimo party and its old civil war rival, the opposition Renamo. The presidential, legislative and provincial polls are widely expected to extend Frelimo's decades-long rule over Mozambique. But Renamo is hoping to capitalize on the electoral changes agreed in the Peace Pact. It hopes to win control of its traditional heartlands in the country's central and northern provinces. Rights groups say failure to make those gains could cause unrest and undermine Renamo's incentive to stick to the peace deal. Mozambicans are hoping for badly needed stability and economic growth in a country. A low-level Islamist insurgency in the north on the doorstep of billion-dollar gas projects is also threatening security long-term. Now, for the latest on the election turnout and what's next in Mozambique, I'm joined by our reporter, Amancio Vilanculos. He's in Cabo Delgado. Good evening, Amancio. Polls have just closed. How was the voter turnout?
Thank you, Esther. Actually, the polls just closed. In the morning, I saw in some sites many people here in Cabo Delgado heading on to vote. But around noon, the numbers were not that higher, even though it said that at least over 50% turned in to vote, an increase from the previous voting 5 years ago.
Now, Amancio, a few minutes ago, we had stories, people reporting that there were ballot staffing. What do you know?
Yes, there were some ballot staffing, mainly in the province where the opposition has a very strong presence. We are talking here about the central province of Sofala and Zambezia, and also in Nampula. We have here to note that Zambezia and Nampula are the most populous province in the country, so elections are actually decided in these two provinces. That's why opposition members were very attentive to control the action or by members of the ruling Frelimo party, and also to surprise many, they found that some of the people stuffing bullets were actually members of some observers groups. national.
Now, Amancio, when does the Electoral Commission plan to announce the results?
Initial results will be in a week, but as per the law, official results are to be announced officially in the next 45 days. So tonight actually, after the voting, they're now actually starting the counting. One of the challenges they face in this counting process is in some stations there's no electricity, so they're actually using alternative ways for light, and opposition parties, they say this will lead to a way to rig elections because they believe that the ruling party might take advantage and change the ballot box.
Well, Amancio, thank you very much. That's VOA's Amancio Vilanculos on the phone from Cabo Delgado in Mozambique. Now, security forces have been out in full force in Guinea's capital as demonstrators gathered to protest against a possible change to the country's constitution. Mia Womersley has more.
Gunfire on the streets of Conakry as protesters burned tyres and threw stones at police on Monday. The demonstration in Guinea's capital was the first of a series of planned rallies against a potential change to the country's constitution, one which could allow President Alpha Condé to seek a third term in office. In spite of the low numbers, security forces appeared to be out in force, breaking up makeshift barricades and making some arrests. When Condé first came to power in 2010, he ended 2 years of military rule and raised hopes for democratic progress in the country. But his opponents say he's since cracked down on dissent. Now 81 years old, the leader's refused to rule out running again. His second term expires in 2020.
Mia Womersley of Reuters reporting. We continue our focus on Malawi this week. Africa54's managing editor, Vincent Makori, is in the southern African country where overfishing is taking a toll on Lake Malawi.
Overfishing on Lake Malawi is a huge problem and a source of concern. And this is because for millions of Malawians, this lake is a source of livelihood. Now, there is a variety of reasons why there is overfishing on Lake Malawi. One is the use of bad fishing methods, such as this mosquito net, which actually scoop up even the baby fish from the lake. The next reason is overpopulation. Now, for years, there was no need for license to go to the lake to fish, and therefore there have been more and more people going to the lake to fish. There are efforts on the ground to help conserve the fish and also repopulate this lake. Lamek Messina brings you that report.
A crowd of fish traders gathers each afternoon and evening at a beach in the Makawa area, waiting for the haul from fishermen. But many of them return home empty-handed because of the increasing scarcity of fish in the lake.
For example, today, those of us who fished in the lake only caught enough to fill 2 5-liter pails, which will only sell for about MK 2,000 each. This is a huge loss for us.
Some fishermen say the fish have been depleted because of climate change. Others point to the increase of fishing vessels on the lake, resulting in stiff competition for the catch. The scarcity have forced the fishermen to double the price sold to the traders.
Whenever they catch low fish, they sell to us at MK 70,000 per crate. But if we have to bargain when we sell it, we only make MK 65,000. To traders, this means we take some losses, and we fail to feed our families.
The dwindling catch has also forced seasoned fish traders out of business, with many of them switching to other alternatives, like Joseph Maida, who is a livestock farmer now.
It's like I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I use the dung for making composite manure. When I have run out of cash, I kill 1 goat and sell the meat.
Meanwhile, the government is trying to sensitize communities on regulations designed to reduce overfishing. These include a ban on some fishing nets and a 2-month annual ban on fishing in the lake from November 1 to December 31.
We have this period which we call closed season, where some fishing gears and fishing methods prohibited. This is actually the time when fish do breed. So it's like we are trying to give some time to fish to freely breed and also grow.
Lakeside communities have formed committees to help reinforce the regulation. In some areas, the villagers have set up bylaws which have instant penalties to those violating the regulations.
We burn fishing nets as penalty for violating bylaws to protect our environment, for our children's future. We can't allow bad fishing practices to continue.
In addition, the communities are lobbying the government to extend the annual 2-month ban on fishing to 5 months in hopes the fish population will grow. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Mangochi.
Lamek Masina is traveling through the southern African nation with Vincent Makori. Stay tuned for all week for more reporting from our Africa 54 team. And on Friday, we'll bring you a special co-production with our news affiliate there, Zodiac TV. Stay tuned for that. Turning to international news, the Trump administration has imposed sanctions on Turkey for its military incursion into Syria. Ankara launched the offensive last week after President Donald Trump abruptly pulled American forces from northern Syria, where they had kept a fragile peace among competing forces. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
The Turkish military convoy crossed into Syria on Monday after launching an offensive last week. Ankara says it aims to carve out a safe zone along its border and drive away Syrian Kurdish fighters it considers to be terrorists. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin.
Turkey is a full member of NATO and an ally of ours who is now fighting over border issues with the Kurds who have helped us with ISIS. It's a complicated situation, and we're monitoring it, as I said, very carefully.
Last week, Trump abruptly ordered the withdrawal of U.S. troops from northern Syria, a decision seen as effectively giving Ankara the green light to launch its offensive.
In Syria, we were supposed to be there for 30 days, and we've been there for 10 years. And these wars, they never end.
Some decry Trump's move as triggering chaos and abandoning Kurdish allies. Lawmakers from both parties on Capitol Hill are coming up with their own sanction plans. In a statement, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said that Turkey's incursion could open the door for an Islamic State resurgence. Hundreds of Islamic State supporters have reportedly escaped, something Trump has blamed on the Kurds. Syrian troops are already moving in towards the northern border after Syrian Kurdish forces said they had reached a deal with Damascus to help them fend off Turkey's invasion. Analyst Michael Luders said Russia is watching the potential clash between Turkey, Syria, and the Kurds closely.
In the end, they will be the ones who will find a political solution here because Europeans and Americans no longer play a role in this conflict.
Aside from American sanctions, the European Union has asked all member states to stop selling arms to Ankara. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7. on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the challenges former Boko Haram insurgents face trying to return to civilian life. We'll be back.
We're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa, around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower, and change the rules. It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
but Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
it is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Sheikh Asali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Global ride-hailing firm Uber has launched a pilot test of a boat service in Lagos to attract commuters who are seeking to avoid the megacity's notoriously congested roads. Uber boat passengers will be charged a flat fare of around $1.40 a trip. With a combination of population growth, congestion, and poor infrastructure, commuting remains a challenge for many in the country. Uber's boat initiative follows a number of motorcycle ride-hailing firms that have targeted West Africa as an area for expansion in the last few months. Next up, more than 67,000 girls between 6 and 17 years of age from across Benin have received new shoes as part of a partnership with Batanga Foundation, TOMS, and UNICEF. Batanga was founded by African diva Angelique Kidjo, lauded for her high-energy shows and her championing of social causes. Girls in Benin are most at risk of dropping out of school when making the transition from primary education to secondary education, with nearly 2 in 3 girls missing out on secondary school. Poverty is a key determining factor for girls' education, with 43% of girls from the poorest households never stepping foot inside a classroom. And finally, on the catwalk at the National Wedding Show in London, the color is blue. White and ivory remain the top choices for dresses, but for everything from bridesmaid dresses, cakes, invitations, and place settings to flowers, blue is tipped to be the hottest color for weddings next year. The latest research has shown that Instagram posts that feature the color blue are actually performing 24% better than any other color, making it a key trend for 2020. And that's what's trending today.
A dozen Democratic presidential candidates will be on stage for the party's next primary debate Tuesday in Westerville, Ohio. The impeachment inquiry involving President Donald Trump is likely to be a major topic of discussion, as we hear from VOA national correspondent Jim Malone in Washington.
Front and center on the debate stage Tuesday will be the current Democratic frontrunner, Joe Biden, whose lead in the polls recently has been slipping. Biden told supporters this week he now favors impeaching President Trump.
He's already convicted himself in full view of the world and the American people. Donald Trump has violated his oath of office, betrayed this nation, and committed impeachable acts.
Biden has now joined the rest of the Democratic field in calling for Trump's impeachment, including his closest rival, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
What he has done has committed impeachable offenses, and he should be impeached.
Warren continues to build support, and recent surveys show her effectively tied with Biden atop the Democratic field, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls. Tuesday's debate will also feature the return to the campaign trail of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who is recovering from a recent heart attack and who reached out to supporters through a campaign video.
And I also want to say that I am feeling great. I'm getting my endurance back, and I look forward to getting out on the campaign trail as soon as possible.
Much of Tuesday's debate is likely to focus on President Trump, says analyst John Fortier.
I think impeachment is going to be front and center. The candidates are all, I think, going to be very strong on the fact that they're for impeachment. I don't think there's going to be much daylight between them.
Those Democrats running behind the front runners also see this next debate as an opportunity, including California Senator Kamala Harris. Harris is also focused on President Trump.
He's getting Americans to turn on each other, and we need to heal. And I know I am uniquely able to bring our country together.
This will be the fourth Democratic candidates debate, and several of the contenders have already qualified for the next debate in November. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Nigerian men who have left the Islamist militant group Boko Haram are finding it difficult to return to civilian life. They face stigma and may turn to substance abuse to cope with their experiences. A program at a psychiatric hospital in Maiduguri treats former insurgents, offering help as they transition to life after Boko Haram. Chika Odua reports from Maiduguri.
Ibrahim Dubji is living a reformed life here in the city of Maiduguri. He owns a small goods store, and he's trying to put the past behind him. 3 years ago, he decided to leave the armed extremist group known as Boko Haram.
We were forced to go to the war front, and soldiers were overpowering us.
After escaping from his fellow fighters, Dubji tried to go back to his hometown, but he was stopped by a Nigerian soldier and rejected by people in the community.
People will be suspecting you that you are still Boko Haram or a Boko Haram informant. The government has already cleared us, but still people around are suspecting us. I need forgiveness from people.
Hundreds of people linked to the armed sect Boko Haram participated in an ongoing government rehabilitation program, and they're now being released to rejoin civilian life. But some former members of the extremist group face intense social stigma and mental health problems. They come to this psychiatric hospital for treatment. It's the only one in northeastern Nigeria.
Group therapy sessions like this one help former insurgents to hone social skills that will help ease their transition back into civilian life. Skills like stress management and interpersonal communication.
Dr. Pinda says substance abuse is a major problem among former insurgents.
Quite a number of them might be having some personality disorders or social phobia, and in which makes them to take drugs so that they can express themselves.
Audu Ali is also a former insurgent. He's tormented by his past.
Morning and evening, I'm thinking about the people I killed.
The notion of forgiveness for reformed insurgents is a controversial one, but some security analysts say it's necessary.
When they're really sorry, they are sorry. But they still, as I said, they still need close monitoring. You send them to jail is not even going to be the solution, because they can go and start planning from the jail too.
Community vigilante forces helping the military's counterterrorism operations say they won't harm the ones who do decide to surrender, but accepting them won't happen overnight.
Okay. Those people, they kill people, they slaughter people, many things, many businesses collapse, many people suffer in the community.
Dubji says that if surrendered insurgents can't cope with everyday life, they may go back to the bushes to rejoin Boko Haram. For now, he's staying put, trying to manage the guilt of his past and keep out of trouble. Chika Odua for VOA News, Maiduguri, Nigeria.
Surveys show an increasing number of male managers are uncomfortable working closely with women. That's because a string of prominent men have lost their jobs after being accused of sexual misconduct. The hashtag #MeToo movement launched 2 years ago this month after accusations against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein went public. Since then, people have shared their stories of sexual assault and harassment online. VOA's Dora Mekwa takes a look at what some are calling the Me Too backlash.
In the wake of the Me Too movement, 41% of men say they're more reluctant to have a one-on-one meeting alone with a woman. And more than 1 in 5 men say they're more inclined to exclude women from social interactions like meeting for drinks after work. That's according to a 2018 survey. Those findings don't surprise New York City consultant Davia Temin. She runs a crisis management firm and maintains an index of high-profile accusations of sexual harassment and abuse.
I think there is a Me Too backlash. I don't think it's serious. I don't think it's lasting. And I think Me Too is here forever. But there certainly is, because this is incredibly uncomfortable. And of course, change isn't comfortable. Change isn't always sought after. And a right that people sort of have always felt from the time of the caveman is being whittled away.
Columbia law professor Ala T. Johnson sees Me Too as a strong force for change.
I think one of the most powerful things is that it's really brought attention to the issue of sexual harassment, to sexual assault, and it has provided a way for women to collectivize their stories. A lot of times people don't believe people in isolation, but when you hear repeated stories, that's when you begin to think these are systemic problems that we need to deal with, and that's powerful.
According to the National Women's Law Center, 15 states have passed new laws aimed at protecting employees from sexual harassment and gender discrimination since October 2017, when the Me Too movement catapulted into the public consciousness. Both Johnson and Temin participated in a recent Me Too panel discussion at Columbia University. They were joined by Shelley Oria, who compiled a collection of Me Too-related writings into a book.
The internet is very strong and powerful, and yet I do find that in most ways it is preparatory in nature. It prepares us for action, that if it doesn't then translate to the physical world, nothing really changes. For laws to change, for the reality in the workplace to change, for women's pay to change, for women's experiences and in the street to change, changes have to happen in the physical world. And that is one of the ways that I think literature can play a part, is that a book lives in the physical world.
Retired attorney Robert Ouimet, who attended the discussion, says Me Too enlightened him as to why some women might have difficulty maintaining long-term law careers.
Actually, I think probably it's a good thing that people are thinking about who they're alone with and who they're not alone with, and under what circumstances they're alone with them. And I actually am, quite amazed by some of the things I hear about. The people being invited, or women being expected to go to hotel rooms and all that.
While it's too early to assess the long-term impact of Me Too, Temin says the movement is like opening a Pandora's box, and there's no closing it. I'm Dora McQuarrie, VOA News, New York.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.